Okay. Well, good morning, as those that are coming in still. Good morning. My name is Rebecca Buckingham, and I get to be a part of the team here at Generis. We have our intro over here, so if you see me looking over here, that is why. And so, good morning, and welcome to the third session in our 5 by 22 mini series. Our session this morning is led by John Wright. He is the executive pastor strategist on Generis's effective ministry team. John is passionate about helping leaders develop healthy teams and a healthy staff culture. Today, he will be covering 5 tools to help you lead your best team in 2022. All right, John, go ahead and take it from here. I'm going to mute myself.
All right. Well, good morning. Thanks for jumping in here. As Rebecca said, we're covering this in 22 minutes, so we're going to fly. I think a lot of us have kind of webinar fatigue, and these hour-long, 2-hour, 5-hour webinars just get long. And so we decided we're going to try something a little different. And our team has put together a series of very brief webinars about 2022. And today we're going to be talking about how to lead your best team. So I want to just cover some tools, super practical and actually pretty granular. I think if you're watching anything that's going on in the world right now, you're probably getting emails daily about the Great Resignation. And I think the thing there is that culture has shifted so much, even generationally. So for boomers, it was kind of live to work, and for Xers, it was work to live. And for those that are in the millennial and Gen Z generations, it's really work to learn. And so if organizations can't make that shift to become a culture of development, you're going to see a lot of people exiting your teams. And so that's what we want to talk about today is how do we create a development culture within our teams. And so chat bar is open. If you want to throw some things in there, you're welcome to do that. I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully this will go and hit play. All right. So, oh, nice. And it went right to the end. So that's awesome. Let's go back to the beginning. That's a good place to start. All right. So there we are. 5 tools to lead your best team in 2022. So what we're going to do is talk through this idea of building a culture of development with your staff. And hang on one second. There we go. All right, so the first thing, super practical, define roles and responsibilities. This has changed drastically in the last 22 months. We've gone from regular church to digital church to hybrid church to who knows what we're in now. And odds are really good that the folks on your team, their roles and responsibilities have changed significantly. Maybe not for everybody, but one thing that I would do going into 2022 is sit down with each person on your team and clarify, what are they doing now? When they show up to work, what do they have to do? What are their roles and responsibilities daily, weekly, monthly? And start to define that. Sit with their job description and walk through it. If you don't have a job description, great time to build that out, right? But sit with that job description and say, are you still doing all of these things? What things are you not doing? What things have been added? What things need to go away if we're going to keep adding more? So this idea of helping your team understand, when I show up to work every day, what actually am I supposed to do, right? Because so much has changed. And so we want to make sure it's super clear for them, what do I do here? Right? And how do I do it? And so get real clear around roles and responsibilities. So that's thing one. Again, super practical. It takes some work. You got to roll up your sleeves. And if you don't have job descriptions for everybody on your team, that's a project. And that would be a good one to set on your goal list for early 2022, is to get clear roles and responsibilities defined for everybody. As a sidebar, that's a great place to drop in your culture. Talk about your cultural values as it relates to roles and responsibilities. If excellence is one of your values as a church, as an organization, then clarify, how does your role and responsibility exhibit excellence in what you do every day, right? So step one, to have a great team, define roles and responsibilities, make sure everybody on your team is super clear about what it is they're supposed to do, okay? Number 2, this is that work to learn idea. Develop your team. You have to build a strategy that is developing your individual and corporate team. There's a lot of ways to do this. Again, values are huge. You want to be pushing the values of your organization through the team, but use other tools. Sometimes I think in ministry, we get overwhelmed with, we have to build this development thing. The reality is that you've got Audible, you've got leadership book summaries, you've got Blinkist. There's all kinds of things out there that you can use to help develop your team. We've got resources at Generis as well. But the idea here is to determine the weekly and monthly, quarterly rhythms around development. If everybody on your team has the Audible app, you just throw $5 in their ministry budget every month and say, hey, everybody download this book, and we're going to talk about it at staff meeting or chapter 1 or chapter 2. You get leadership book summaries. It's a subscription. I believe it's about $180 a year. And you're going to get 1 or 2 books summarized for you by pastors that's delivered to your inbox. And all you got to do is read it and then share it with your team. And so by the end of a year, you could have walked your entire team through, 6, 8, 10, 12 leadership books in the course of a year. That's huge, right? And it starts to give you language, and it starts to help them feel like, man, I'm important here. They're actually growing me. And the other thing is, don't just develop people in their professional space. As churches, our primary responsibility is discipleship, and that starts with your team. So you want to be developing professionally, but also spiritually, relationally, all of those things. It's a holistic thing. And again, those younger generations, this is huge for them, that they live in a space where they are being consistently developed and grown, right? That's what they expect from you as their leader. All right, so develop your team individually and corporately, huge in 2022. So here's just a quick professional development conversation that I threw up here. This is a template that we've put together, and I'll just read it quickly. Use the template to understand how an employee's skills and strengths align with their role, and then discuss their goals and what steps they need to take to reach their goals. Now, not 3 to 5 years, right? If COVID has taught us anything, it's this idea of 5 and 10-year plans. They're out the window, right? So sit with your team individually and talk about, what do we need to focus on for the next 6 to 18 months? And then there's these 3 categories. Which of your strengths are unutilized in your current role? What are your current career priorities and goals that excite you? How do you think your current job aligns with your personal values, right? This is a conversation, right? So much of what we do is from the manager to the employee. We need to create a culture where there's conversation, right? Discuss their development. What barriers or hurdles exist to achieving your professional goals? Are there learning opportunities you would like to participate in, right? So I don't need to read this whole thing. I can share this with you. Reach out after the call and I can share these tools, but it's super important for us to have these conversations. The last section, what new or improved skill would help you be more effective in your role, right? You're starting to learn how they learn. How do they want to grow? Where do they want to grow? What are their aspirations down the road? Do they see themselves in that same spot, or do they want to grow into something else? Okay, so this is a professional development conversation. And there we go, dialogue, right? So that's what I'm talking about. This is a conversation. Annual performance reviews are worthless. Sorry if you're an annual performance review person. That does not work within our current context. People need regular touch base. If you read, I don't know if you can see this book, The Generation Z Guide, by Ryan Jenkins. If you are leading anybody under 28 years old, you need to read this book. Again, I can share that with you if you reach out, but the millennial and Gen Z generation, they are looking for weekly, sometimes daily conversations with their manager. And again, if you're an older leader, that feels like a lot of work, and it is, but it's the only way you're going to retain them. They're not going to stay just because you give them a paycheck. And so forget this idea of annual performance reviews. To talk to somebody in December about something they did or didn't do in March, complete waste of time. And so you have to have just-in-time feedback, just-in-time development, and asking them questions about what it is they need to grow in their own leadership, right? So this is all very conversational, very two-way, and you are learning with them. All right, so that's this idea of dialogue, very different engagement, and perspective is huge for them. They want to have a voice. They maybe aren't leading the organization, but they want to have a voice. And so give them that spot at the table to have that conversation. All right, determine the win. This is huge for that visionary leader. And again, I'm going fast. We have 22 minutes. So I'm trying to make the most of your time. And again, I can share all of this with you later. But as visionaries, it's really easy to basically say, take the hill, right? And I'm a visionary. I'm an entrepreneur, innovator. And it's easy for me to be in a room and just say, hey, here's what we're going to do. And it's going to be amazing. The challenge is most people in the room aren't that. And they don't know how to move forward. So if I say take the hill, they're like, well, where do I grab hold with my hand? Where do I put my foot? How do I actually move up the hill? So this is like, you know, if a football coach says in the locker room, you know, let's win the game, and every play is just everybody run to the end zone and we'll throw a Hail Mary. That would never win football games. Football games are about the tactical things that happen to eke out 3, 4, 5 yards on every play. And so we have to sit with our teams as groups and as individuals and help them understand, here's what the win is. Here's what success looks like for you. And here's how we know when we've achieved it. So again, super tactical. I'll share this little screen. So I like to think about current state and desired state. So let's just say if we're all church folks here and the desired state is for 5 new small groups by end of Q1. All right, so this is the desired state. And we're gonna walk through and say, okay, the goal is not this desired state. The goal is not 5 new groups. That's the desire, right? The goal is identify 5 new group leaders. Action step is probably call 30 people. Start with existing group leaders. How do we know when it's done? Well, you've made the phone calls, you've sent the emails, you are in charge, and I want it done by Friday, right? So then the next goal is train 5 new leaders. Action step, schedule the training. Measurement, who came, you know, did they show up? Did they walk through the process? Who's responsible? Maybe that's somebody else. Your small groups person is leading that. That needs to be done by January 15th. So this gets super tactical. If you are a visionary leader, this will drive you crazy. But if you don't do this with your non-visionary staff, they won't know what to do. They don't know how to just go get 5 new groups started, right? They need somebody to say, put your hand here, put your foot here, and then move forward, right? So this is, again, super granular, but if you're not taking your team members through processes like this, you will be frustrated, they will be frustrated, and they will be part of that great resignation, right? So understand the difference between desires and goals. Goals are things that I can control, me personally. To say we're going to grow children's ministry by 20% in Q1, that is not a goal. That is a desire. The goal is how many families are we going to get each week? So now, then what does that mean from a web presence and a community engagement and talking to parents to have their kids invite kids? You have to move from vision to strategy to tactics. And churches are great at vision. Some churches move to strategy. Very few move to tactic. And the tactics is what your team needs to actually move forward. Okay, so those are tactics. All right, and then the last point that I want to cover, and we've got 7 minutes, is this idea of deployment, right? So our job as leaders in the church is to equip the saints for the ministry of the gospel, right? For them to go and do things. So we're creating systems and processes that support the ministry engagement of people in our church and on our team. And so one of the things that I see lacking in church, it's been for a long time, is the idea of a clear process of leadership development and delegation. And so I want to talk through just briefly, how do you actually do this in a way that's life-giving and helpful for your organization. We can identify leaders, but then we don't actually move them through a process. And so I want to walk through this again very quickly, and I can share this if you reach out. So this process actually helps you assess capacity, instill culture, and ensure competence. Now, I mean, that would be amazing, right? If we could do that. So one of the problems that I see with delegation in ministry is we don't bring people along until it's a crisis. You know, all of a sudden there's something that needs leadership, and we just grab somebody and we throw them in, and then it doesn't work. They crash and burn, or they don't do it the way we wanted them to do it. And so we actually find delegation is to be a very frustrating, and it just doesn't work. And so this process brings people through something where you can actually assess capacity, instill culture, and ensure competence. So it's this idea of you start with level 1. Everybody starts at level 1. And it's just this: do exactly what I've asked you to do. You're bringing somebody new onto the team, and it doesn't matter what their experience is, because what you're trying to do is actually learn how they think about things, learn how they're going to do things, and then repurpose them within the culture that you actually want. Here's how I want you to think. Here's what I want you to do. Here's what ministry looks like at our church. So level 1 says, do exactly what I've asked you to do. Level 2 says, think about it, research it, come back to me, and we'll discuss it, and then I will still make the decision. Number 3 says, research it, outline the options, and make a recommendation. So level 3, now I'm starting to get how they think about things. And if they come back and say, I think we should do this, and we're like, whoa, we would never do that here, and here's why, right? So we're actually training them how to think and how to do, how to act within our culture. So that's number 3. Number 4, make a decision and tell me what you did. I trust you to make the best decision, right? Because now I've actually moved them through a process to understand their capacity, push my cultural values into them, and make sure they have the tools that they need to deliver, right? So oftentimes what I see is we instantly grab somebody and we throw them in at level 3 or level 4 because maybe they were a level 3 or 4 in some other area of ministry. That doesn't mean that they're qualified in the new area. So I'm going to bring everybody starting at level 1 and bring them through. And then finally at level 5, you know what? I totally trust you. I've walked you through this process. I know how you think. I know what you're going to do. And so I'm releasing you. I'm deploying you into ministry to go do your thing, right? And so, but here's the biggest thing. All right, let me grab that and click here. Here's what happens when we don't, if we delegate properly or we don't, right? So the questions as a leader, are you making it clear what level of authority you're conferring when you delegate a task? If you give something to somebody on your team, whether they get a W-2 or they're a volunteer, as a leader, are you making it clear what level of authority and responsibility you are conferring when you delegate a task? That's on us. It's not on them. If we're trying to delegate something to somebody, we need to be the one that's clear, not them, okay? So make it clear. Here's what I'm asking you to do. Here's your authority. Here's your responsibility, okay? And then you're back to those tasks. So you've got something measurable. And then number 2, does the one that you're leading or developing understand how to move within the levels? Have you made it clear that levels are determined by previous experience and execution, right? So this is huge again. You might be a level 5 in finance. Maybe you're bringing somebody in who maybe they run a bank, right? And they've been amazing there. And you throw them in as a small group leader in your student ministry. But you say, hey, they've run a bank, they've got to be good at this. They're not. You have to bring them through and say, hey, I get it, you own a bank, but in student ministry leadership, you're a level 1. And we're going to move you through a process. Now, you might move through that process in 2 weeks or 2 months, or you might get stuck at level 3 forever. But it's up to us to be really clear with them about what it is we're asking them to do. We're giving them the tools to do it. And here's the key right here. The primary goal of the process is to understand how they think about any given task or opportunity. And moving them through levels 1 through 3 will give you great insight into their thought process, right? So this is a perfect, if not the only way, to establish your culture within these people. And this is true of staff or volunteers. So You have to walk them through that process. They won't ask for it. If you grab them and say, hey, you're now a level 3 or level 4, sink or swim, good luck with that, right? We've probably all experienced that over and over and over. So I'll stop the share and we'll jump back into the room. But let's see here, exit that. So those are the main ideas. The thing here is, if you want to have a great team, create a culture of development and a culture of learning, and a conversation, a constant dialogue between you and your team. And moving into 22, that will help you retain and attract some pretty great people. But if you bring an awesome person onto your team and it's just something you're extracting from them, you're not pouring into them, they will be part of the Great Resignation, and they won't be around very long, because organizations know to keep great talent, you have to be developing them, and developing them in your cultural values, not theirs. If you have 20 people on your staff and you have not established your culture, you have 20 different cultures, and that's a mess. So it's really important as a leader, as you go into 22, to define your culture, teach your culture, model your culture, bring people through that process, and then create this whole thing where you're having conversations, you're clarifying roles and responsibilities, you're helping them understand, how do I do my job? You're giving them the resources they need to get better at their job. You're having consistent dialogue with them, and you're helping them understand, how do I move within the levels of this organization? So that's it. And we are at 8:23, 1 minute over. Hopefully that was helpful for you. You can reach out to me. Becca, can you throw my email in there? There it is. Happy to share this stuff with you, whatever that looks like. 30-minute call, just reach out. But hopefully that was helpful, and you finished your coffee and you can go on with your morning. So thank you so much for joining us. And if you've got any initial questions, I'll just hang on here and you can throw those in the chat as well. So thanks for being with us today.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, John. That was really, really insightful. And so if you're ready to begin leading your best team this next year, be sure to schedule that complimentary discovery session that John mentioned. I dropped in there his link to go to his team page to connect from there. And then you will also be receiving a follow-up email after today with information as well on how to connect with John. Be sure to join us next Thursday as Greg Ligon hosts session 4 on 3 keys to a durable digital ministry in 22. And you can register for all that and all of our upcoming sessions by going to the link that I'm dropping in the chat as well, which is generis.com/5x22. Because these are the 5x22 mini series hosted by Effective Ministry Team. And so, yeah, as John was saying, thank y'all so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at our next session. Thanks again, John.
All right. Thank you all.